Reports of flying saucers are nothing new. From the beginning of recorded time, men have been seeing unexplainable things in the sky, and there's no reason to doubt they saw something. The question is, was what they saw really there? And what was it they really saw?
There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide at all.
Welcome to a special Somewhere in the Skies live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So good to have you guys with us tonight. You like the new decorations? I think we had to shake things up a little bit. Get some of the OGs, the icons of ufology in the background there. You've got J. Allen Hynek and Jacques Vallée. This is an actual photo. This was not digitally made or AI made. It was colorized, I'll give you that. But this was an actual photo of these two, the BFFs of ufology, absolute legends. And I'm so honored to have them now gracing the walls of Somewhere in the Skies HQ. But speaking of UFO legends, as you saw right there at the top, we lost one. We lost one last night. Nick Pope passed away April 6th, 2026. Man, that was very quick from when he first announced that he was going through some health issues and this. So, um, yeah, it's still hitting me. It's kind of put me, you know, in a mood today, a reflective mood, which can always be good. To just count your blessings. Absolutely count your blessings, guys. Every day, every breath, every minute, um, every moment of sadness, of anger, of happiness, of laughter, of crying, of feeling, it all means something. So, yeah. And I think this means something. Us coming together and doing stuff like this. We found each other. We're a community. And that's what we all look for in life constantly. Our tribes. And I feel like we have such an incredible one here. And, Nick Pope was just such a good friend and colleague. We didn't always get along, especially politically. But I have tipped back many a drink with him, had some incredible conversations, got to visit him in the basement office in New York City and record a live episode of Somewhere in the Skies with him and Stephen Greenstreet. Uh, got drunk with him in a casino in Tempe, Arizona. Got kicked out of said casino as well. Story for another time. But yeah, yeah, such good times. So yeah, I want to send out, my thoughts and prayers to his wife, to his family and everything. And earlier today, I put together a video montage of some of Nick's interviews and in moments in ufology, and I put it up on our social media. But I thought before we get to the documentary we're going to be watching along with you guys tonight, that I'd show you this video montage, some of the moments of Nick Pope and the words of wisdom he's had throughout the years. I mean, he's been doing this for a really long time. He's one of those voices. He's like Stanton Friedman and Jacques Vallée. You know it when you hear it, and it brings this comfort and this nostalgia, and this feeling of forward momentum and forward thinking when it comes to UFOs too. And Nick was definitely one of those, especially for people in the UK and across Europe and stuff like that. So yeah, yeah. So let's go ahead and watch this quick, somewhat quick. I think it's like 5 minutes long, but it's a great, great sort of montage of Nick Pope that I thought we could kind of all look back on. So let's play this for you guys right now, and then I promise we'll get going to the documentary. Enjoy.
1965 in London, fairly unremarkable education. The real story of my life and what I did with it begins in 1985 when I joined the Ministry of Defence, and I was moved around from various different postings. Then in 1991 I was asked whether I would like to spend 3 years investigating UFOs for the government, so I said that sounded quite interesting and I accepted.
The Ministry of Defence insider is about to talk publicly about the secret world of UFO sightings. Nick Pope spent 4 years as the MOD's UFO watcher. His book about his experiences, Open Skies, Closed Minds, is published next month. Nick Pope, what do you believe now that you didn't believe 5 years ago?
Well, I came into the job as a skeptic, but I was convinced by the sheer weight of evidence, the sightings, the radar evidence, all that sort of thing, that some of these things that we see in the sky and call UFOs are extraterrestrial in origin.
Extraterrestrial what? Craft with people inside them?
Well, craft of some sort, certainly. That's not to say they all are. Of course, most of them have conventional explanations, but after rigorous investigation, we find that 5 or 10% absolutely defy any conventional explanation, and these ones, yes, it does look as if they may be some sort of craft from elsewhere.
We asked Nick Pope, who used to investigate UFOs for the Ministry of Defence, what he thinks of this sensational video.
This is one of the better fakes that I've seen. Looking at the skills of the filmmaker, I think it's a nice piece of work. It's well put together, and the black and white imagery is a nice touch because it plays into that whole idea that this might be something that's been in the government vaults for a while. Might even relate to Roswell, the holy grail of ufology.
Do governments know more about life on other planets than they tell us? Nick Pope used to work on UFOs for the Ministry of Defence and has written a book about it. Nick, simple, straightforward, first question. Is there life out there, yes or no?
Yes.
You believe that?
Absolutely.
Tell me why.
Well, scientists are beginning to come forward now, and for years they've been very, very conservative. But now cosmologists and biologists are beginning to put papers down saying, yes, the universe is probably teeming with life, and I think it's a short step to then say that that life could get here.
Are they little bubblegum green men with things coming out of their heads?
No, they're actually little grey men and women, one presumes, about 3.5 feet tall, with very large insect-like eyes. They're quite spindly in appearance and appear to act like a hive society with very little individual self-will.
You're joking.
Absolutely not. These reports have been coming in independently from all around the world for years and years, long before all this was in the public domain. People are describing a very real phenomenon.
Nick Pope has become one of the most credible and well-known researchers on the issue of UFOs. He worked for many years studying the issue for the British Ministry of Defence, and I met up with him at his house in Tucson, Arizona.
The second and critical question is, do UAPs represent a possible threat to the defence of the realm? We could argue never shown hostile intent. However, Russian aircraft attempting to penetrate the UK air defence region in the Cold War never showed hostile intent, but they certainly represented a threat. Thus, the only
if you show up and you don't do anything doesn't mean that you're not necessarily...
And this is it in a nutshell. Thus, the only logical conclusion that we can come to is that we do not know if UAPs represent a threat to the defence of the realm. And this is Defence Intelligence, Science and Technology.
Some sad news for us here at News Nation. A friend of the network who I had the pleasure of interviewing not too long ago, Nick Pope, has just passed away from cancer. You'll remember Nick as one of the most prominent voices on all things UFOs. His work on aerial phenomenon at Britain's Ministry of Defence led him to being known as the real-life Fox Mulder, Fox Mulder being the lead character in the hit show The X-Files. In one of his last emails to our producers, he said he'd be spending his remaining days with, quote, plenty of laughter, watching various British comedy shows with his beloved wife, Elizabeth. Elizabeth posting this evening on X saying she was lucky to have married Nick and that he was a wonderful husband. Nick, you will be missed by so many. Thank you for your positivity, all that you put into the world, and you will not be forgotten.
There will inevitably be unknown unknowns inextricably linked up with and part and parcel of the UFO phenomenon. So the UFO phenomenon may end up, firstly, being something that is solvable, but the solution may be something that we hadn't quite expected or completely perhaps hadn't expected. It may tell us something fundamentally new and different about the universe, and it may tell us something new about ourselves.
All right. Rest in peace, Nick. I hope you find the answers you sought in life somewhere in the skies, my friend, for sure. Some really nice words you guys are all putting in the chat, so thank you. Sorry. Just getting a little choked up. In lighter news, guys. We had an incredible day when it came to space exploration yesterday. And I almost find it fitting that someone like Nick Pope, who was always looking to the stars, died the same day that Artemis went to the moon. I think it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. You know, that there will always be that connection with him now. And I think that's awesome. I really do. So again, we're going to lighten the mood tonight, watch a really fun documentary from 1979 of all years. Crazy time in ufology, the contactees, the beginnings of all the alien abduction cases that were really happening around the world and all that. But before we get to that, first of all, I forgot to talk a little shop with you guys. The super chat and super stickers will be open all night. We have a goal of 10 super chats or super stickers tonight. And I've got a cool, fun little thing for you guys tonight. If we reach 10 super chats of any kind, doesn't matter, price wise, you will be entered into a very fun lottery to win one of my signed books of your choosing, either one. My original right here, or the more current one right here, Somewhere in the Skies, Human Approach to the UFO Phenomenon, or Stories from Somewhere in the Skies. You know what? We'll do both. So there will be two winners. So if we reach that goal tonight, I'm going to put all the people who sent in super chats and super stickers, going to put you all in a list. And then I will pick two winners and I will post that on our social media tomorrow morning. And, I'll put it in the next live stream, something like that. We'll go with that. We'll go with that. It'll be according to your handle here in the live stream or something. We will figure something out in order for you to get your prize. But yeah, I am going to be giving away two of my books, one of each, signed. So yeah, I see we got one already. Thank you so much, Paranormal Pixie. Truly do appreciate the $5 super sticker. You have been entered into our contest. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, do all that YouTubey stuff before we even get started. Trying to think if there's anything else before I bring in our wonderful moderator and co-host who is joining us tonight. Her and I will be hopping in, stopping the documentary, breaking down some moments of it with you guys. Get your questions and comments. The super chats will be the things we highlight most. So if there's a part of the documentary you find most compelling and want to really get your voice into the conversation here, that's a great way to do it. So yeah, thank you so much, Stephen Hicks. I'm down for a book. Absolutely, man. You have officially been entered. So thank you. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Truly do appreciate it. But let's bring in Suzanne because we're going to cover a little bit of the Artemis flyby the moon because we live streamed yesterday for 8 hours. 8 hours. You're welcome, world. I was falling asleep. I think she had to wake me up. And she's like, you should probably end the stream. They're already coming back to Earth. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I probably should. But it was incredible. We live streamed the whole thing. Some of you in the chat right now were with us like the whole freaking time, which is incredible. So thank you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us and watching history in the making. The images they got of the moon and the earth were incredible. I'm going to show some of them to you guys in just a few moments here. Just amazing. Yeah, I know there's a lot of horrible things going on in the world, but even the astronauts mentioned yesterday, like these are the things that can bring us together and show that we're all human beings. So yeah, speaking of human beings, let's bring her in. Let's bring her in and let's look at some of these Artemis photos of the moon. So, without further ado, the one, the only Suzanne Landers. Welcome.
Hi, how is everybody today?
How you guys doing? Let her know in the chat. Okay, so we're going to be watching the documentary in just a little bit, but let's catch up a little bit, right?
Okay.
I mean, the UFO world never stops. The world never stops spinning, and neither does the UFO world either.
Exactly.
What's going on in the world of UFOs other than the unfortunate passing of our friend and colleague, Nick Pope? Is there anything I should be paying attention to right now before we get to Artemis?
Well, I think there's a little chitter chatter on the back burner about maybe some whistleblower protections being taken more seriously by Congress right now. So I'm kind of following that story for the next live stream. We'll see if anything comes of that. Okay. And then really Artemis kind of swept it all, I thought. And it should have. It should have, you know, that was a big deal. I'm glad that we live streamed the takeoff, the launch, and I'm glad that we live streamed the what do they call it, like the boomerang where it goes out and around, it doesn't
slingshot.
stop. Yeah. Anyway, it was pretty freaking amazing. And as you mentioned, now the photos, holy smokes, people.
Yeah, I mean, this was, I don't know exactly when this was taken. I don't know if this was during the launch or during the flyby. But the first thing I wanted to touch on here is this is the science team for Artemis. And I mean, maybe I'm making too much of it, but look at how many women there are there, Susan.
Oh, isn't this amazing? Look at the room, how things have changed from when I was a child and it was only young white men, you know, in every nook and cranny, not just astronauts, you know, but look at this and look at the amazement on the faces. I think they even stunned themselves that you know that they did it. They did it, you know.
Absolutely. I can imagine they've been working on this mission for over 3 years. That goes from everyone, from like the astronauts down to these people in the comm rooms, in the science room, down to the freaking like people who made their spacesuits, to the janitors, to the barista at the NASA coffee shop. Like you all made this happen, which is just
right.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
I also think we might be watching. I see that Paranormal Pixie is in with us today. Hey, we've missed you. We're glad you're back.
I know. Welcome back.
She says it's incredible to see how many women are involved in science. And I attribute this to the decades-long work around STEM and STEM's initiatives to bring young girls into the math and science programs, which we were not doing. In fact, it was very much the opposite. I think I mentioned the other day, I was actually told in a complicated geometry class when I wasn't picking up a concept I needed, well, you know, math is hard for girls. You know, and so now look at this room.
It's incredible. I know. Yeah. I remember we were talking about how much the X-Files impacted STEM as well with Dana Scully, the character of Dana Scully. I think they said like STEM research and people getting into science after that in the collegiate field was up by like 80% with women or something. So Yeah.
That's what
Incredible.
it takes. That's why the little the astronaut, the female who's the plumber, and all the other patent holders, things she's done, patent holding things she's done.
Yeah.
That's what little girls will be watching. So hopefully it is such a positive and a launch of a whole new set of young girls who can look at this picture you have up on the screen and who can follow that female astronaut and get in there and help.
Absolutely. They are no longer hidden figures. They are
That's
out
right.
in the open, and it's
That's right.
amazing. Well, let's look at some of the photos quick.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. A nice selfie
I love
of the
that.
4 astronauts here.
But where's Rise? We need to see Rise. That was my only
Rise.
disappointment. They never showed him.
I know, guys. If you didn't know, Rise is this little plushy mascot for this mission. I'll see if I can pull one up in a little bit.
Okay.
But I thought this is pretty cool. I think this is like as they were going by the moon, they took this selfie all together, which is really cool.
What an experience they must have had. Look at this. Holy smokes.
So this is, I don't know if we're going to put this out on podcast. I don't think we are. So you're probably just going to be watching this. So we don't have to talk about what we're seeing, but I guess we can a little. Wow. This is from the surface of the moon looking at the Earth, and it is gorgeous.
Amazing, isn't it?
Breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking. Let's continue here. Oh,
wow. I know.
That's the moon with the sun behind it. So I don't know if this was like kind of during the eclipse moments or whatnot.
Yeah, they did, maybe so. Yeah.
They actually did see an eclipse while they were up there, which was pretty. I think I have a photo. Yeah.
There was a period of time they had to be full on eclipse gear in order to be where they were. And I also loved how they basically had to cover and shut all the windows at one point because of the sun's light coming off the planet Earth, which I don't think of us as being sort of a light bearer.
Reflective moment.
A reflective thing, but we were, to the extent that they had to cover their windows.
Yeah. I remember during the communications, they're like, yeah, you're going to want to close that right now.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
Exactly.
I think Stephen asked, is that real or AI? All of these photos you're seeing are 100% real. According to NASA, there will always be those who think it's all fake, blah, blah, blah. I'm not one of them. Stop being stupid, guys. Just stop it. Stop it. We went to the moon. We went back to the moon yesterday. Enough. This is not a community that supports those fringe conspiracy theories.
That's right.
At least not me. So yeah.
No.
I mean, come on, look at that.
Look at that. Image. And I love the shadow on the Earth.
Yeah.
Up from the moon, I guess.
It's crazy. Like we always get the other perspective, and now we're seeing the moon as a celestial body, which we always think it's just this big dead rock in space. And now we're seeing it. We're seeing sides of it and angles and things we've never seen before, which is just amazing.
I wonder what the moon base clan is doing, because I didn't see any moon bases.
Not yet. They haven't released.
Maybe that's later. I also loved, though, this is a good time maybe to mention this, the astronauts talking in real time about the color they were seeing, green, brown, and I thought, really, because it just looks gray or white to me when you look at it. So very interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't even so much science and technical. The astronauts were reporting back what they were feeling, what it was evoking in them. It was such an interesting experiment to in real time hear these astronauts having these psychological epiphanies and whatnot. And that's things you only hear about after astronauts would come back from space. Now we're hearing it in real time. And I think that's a part of this mission, was to gather what these astronauts were thinking and feeling, because that will eventually affect the astronauts that will go on to phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. So yeah, really interesting. A
lot of fun. And it made it quite personal, I thought.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It wasn't an isolated science experiment happening. These are human beings having human reactions to something absolutely spectacular.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What else we got? This one really hit me. This is
Wow.
why is her name escaping me?
Yeah.
It's the female astronaut.
Mm.
Looking at the Earth from her window, and it's
Isn't
just
that
like,
amazing? But
wow.
you can kind of see in this picture why they were struggling with light from the planet Earth, because it is so bright off those clouds. So it's a wonderful picture. And I love her hair. Maybe you get used to that, but we don't normally have our hair standing straight up like that.
Just
And
floating in
I look at
space.
the guys are kind of working around all that hair too. Everybody. It's
I
like there's an
know.
extra passenger in the craft, and it's her hair.
Did you see the clip going around of when the jar of Nutella was floating by the
No.
camera? Someone was like, that is like, what do you call it? Ad placement
Oh,
of the
marketing. Yeah,
century
they
right
need to
there.
they need to be paying NASA some money and get
It
hold of
was
that.
really funny. They were like in the middle of doing all their mission-y stuff, and then like a jar of Nutella just floats by the camera that
I
got
wanted to see
loose.
the rise float by the camera, not
I
the Nutella.
know. I know. Just look up Rise Artemis mission, guys. Look at how cute it is.
He's so cute.
I think we've got maybe one or two more. Oh, this is the
I
last one.
love this one. Look
This
at the
one?
definition in the craters.
Oh, I know. We can see the craters so well. And the other thing that really hit me with this one, Suzanne, was like seeing the Earth as a crescent. Again,
Yes.
it's like everything is
Yeah.
in reverse now. We're so used to seeing crescent moons, and now we're seeing the Earth that way. And it really makes me, think of how fragile our planet is, and we could become a moon someday, just
We
a
could.
dead rock floating out there in space if we don't get our act together. And
We don't change what we're doing.
yeah, but beautiful nonetheless.
Gorgeous.
Again, just putting that mirror back on ourselves in an image like this really hit me. for
Yes,
sure.
and the definition, I'm so glad that the visual tech is where it is at this moment in time so that we get to have this quality photo. It's almost miraculous to me, and that all that is being beamed back to Earth in this format.
Mhm. It's stunning, and I understand why people are like, "Are they real? Those look like those are so good. Like, there's no
Right.
way." And again, like, who are we? We maybe NASA's faking all of this again.
Maybe,
but
that's right.
I don't want to think that, but
I don't think so. I think somebody would tell.
I think so. I think there'd be too many. There's too many people that work there. Someone would
Right.
blow, especially our contact/mole that we have working.
That's
at NASA.
right. That's right. J. Allen Heineken, you are just being naughty today. I'm just going to say.
CGI Earth is flat. Oh my God. If you guys want some good entertainment after we watch this documentary tonight, go watch Flat Earthers reacting to the
hilarious.
rocket launch. Oh my God.
It's
You want
so
a good
funny.
time.
I'm
you
reacting
watch
to
that.
anything. This has been going on TikTok and Instagram for quite a
Mhm.
while. And they'll interview a flat earther, and they will present them with solid evidence, and then they just lose their minds. So-
Oh my God. Hilarious. Guillaume, thank you so much for the
yes.
€5 super. I think that's euros, pound. I should know that. Super chat. Really do appreciate that. Per aspera ad astra to the stars, my friend. Absolutely.
And we
Absolutely.
also have our beloved Pat.
Pat, thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah. He
Thank you.
snuck
Thank you.
his in
Keep
there
looking
when
up.
you were talking.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Thank you, guys. Wow, we're getting there, guys. We're on our way to our goal of 10 or more super chats. Yeah, again, if you super chat or super sticker tonight, you're going to be put into a lottery to win one of my signed books.
Yeah.
If that is something you would even want, but
Highly
the offer is
recommend,
there.
highly recommend.
Thank you. I'm almost done with my third book, guys.
So exciting.
Oh man. Oh, let me tell you, this is gonna, yeah, knock people's socks off. I think. I'm okay saying that. I truly believe in this.
Good.
book.
Good. I
Yeah.
can't wait.
What do you say? Should we watch a documentary?
Let's watch a 1979 documentary. Do you happen to have one nearby?
I do. So tonight, guys, we're gonna be watching along to UFOs Are Real from 1979. You're gonna recognize some faces in here. Stanton Friedman's in here. Travis Walton, Betty Hill.
Betty Hill. Yeah.
Yep. There are quite a few you're going to recognize for sure. And I got to give a shout out. Who was it? I'm going to go on my Facebook really quick because this was recommended on our Facebook group. Someone was like, this documentary is what got me into ufology. So I'm like, that's pretty freaking cool.
Cool.
Let me see if I can find it really quick. But so I will say up front, we're doing this for educational purposes tonight, guys. So hopefully we will not get a copyright strike. This is public domain. We have put that in the show notes as well. We're going to be commenting and stopping the documentary to talk about it, break it down as well. So it is transformative work. Just trying to say all the buzzwords so that we don't get caught in the AI algorithms here
Exactly.
on YouTube. But I'm trying to go back in our Facebook group here to see if I can find it. If I don't find it shortly, we're just going to start. Oh, here we go.
All right.
Is this it? Nope, that's not it. I can't find it, but whoever you were that recommended this in our Facebook group, thank you. There we go. We'll shout you out back in the Facebook group after that. They might even be watching. They might be watching with us.
They might.
Yeah. But yeah. Super chat, super stickers will be open for the whole remainder of the night, guys. And enjoy. We're going to start the documentary. Like I said, Suzanne and I might hop in every now and again, break it down. If you have some burning questions or comments during the doc, put them in the super chat and we'll pause her and we'll talk for sure.
Excellent.
That's what it's all about. So here we go with UFOs Are Real from 1970 already, Suzanne.
We made it through the intro.
I'm sorry, guys. Catalina Island, and we're looking at a Tic Tac UFO? What?
I know. And did you know that you can actually access portions of Catalina Island or somewhere right near it, and you can camp? So at some point, somewhere in the skies is going to have to get its courage up, and off we go.
For sure. Yeah,
See
I
what
mean,
we can capture.
I've made my way out that way quite a bit, especially during the holidays. So maybe I'll just have to finally take the ferry over or something. But
Exactly.
wow. Okay, sorry. I was thinking Catalina Island. That's right off where all the Tic Tac and Navy stuff happened, and now we're looking at like a UFO, Tic Tac shaped UFO over Catalina. Crazy. Okay, sorry. Here we go. That mountain, the famous mountain out there, I forget what it's called.
Hold
The
on
one from-
one sec.
Yeah. I wonder if it's the one from Close Encounters?
I'm sorry, the front door is ringing and the dog's barking.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. No, it's fine. No, let me talk. I got this. Yeah, is that the mountain, guys? Devil's Tower. Thank you, Jay Ellen. Devil's Mountain. Monument Valley. Everyone's got their, I don't know. Suzanne will be right back, guys. Suzanne will be right back. I don't know, but interesting nonetheless. What do you guys think it is? Mick West would say that was probably a bird with another bird following it, but we shall see. Let's continue.
Isn't
Whoa,
that
that's
interesting? Yeah.
wow. I think we both picked up on that. It
Yeah.
used to be the opposite. Everyone's
It
like, it's
did.
only dumb people and hicks in the
Right.
backwoods who see UFOs, the uneducated. Wow.
I wonder if that's about having the ability to intellectually set aside the emotional stuff in order to observe and take in the evidence on its own feet and then deal with the emotional stuff later, which is what an educated brain can typically do. But it's so interesting.
That's such a good point. Yeah, they're able to disassociate and just analyze it. And
Right.
when they're still left with no answers, boom, wow. That's a staggering amount of people and percentage back then. Wow.
When we
Okay.
start again, I'm going to Google what the percentage is today.
Okay. Brazil. What is up with Brazil, Suzanne?
That's so much going on. I don't know. Between Varginha and Colares and all the things in between, just amazing.
It is, and I brought it up, I think, the other day. Without giving away too much, I talked at length about Colores during my my filming stint this past week in London. So I got to really dive deep, and it's hilarious because Suzanne, for over a year now, has been sending me so much of her documentation and research on the Caloris case, and she's like, you gotta do an episode on it. I'm like, I know, I'll get to it. I promise. And then I get the call to come to London. We need you to film like tomorrow. We're covering Caloris. And I'm like, of course.
Of course
so
they
like,
are. The universe is helping me on this.
Yep.
Brian Sprague. It's
Resend
time
me
to do
everything.
it. It is a phenomenal thing, and it's actually quite intense and frightening, and not as a result of people misunderstanding what they were seeing and experiencing, actually as a result of what was happening. It was actually terrifying, and 2 people passed away. They lost their lives in what was going on. So anyway, it's well worth an episode.
It is. It looks like our stream we might have hit a violation. Stream suspended for policy violations. Let me check. Let me see if I can find it. We might have to stop here. No.
I'm with bend over.
Let's see. Are we back?
I love the group's reaction.
Well, I know. They're all like, you guys got... Let's see if we're back. Oh, we're back.
Okay, good. We dodged it. Maybe I better run that banner on fair use a little more.
Are we back, guys? I think we got...
Yeah.
Right. Oh, no. This could be a problem. This could be a problem.
They'll demonetize us if we get another SWAT.
I don't know. What do you think? Should we roll the dice and keep going?
If we do, let's break it up into smaller segments. Let's interrupt.
Okay, let's do that. That's such a good idea.
If we get in trouble, we get in trouble.
Okay, cool. So we're going to try to maybe every like 3 minutes we'll stop and or something like that. Are we back, guys? We are back. Hi, chat. Hello. Welcome, Skywatch. Yeah, keep going. Bill says. Okay.
Good.
Here we go.
I don't know a lot about him. Have you studied him before?
No, he's kind of a controversial character. He has like the largest collection of UFO videos and photos like ever.
But he's USAF, right?
He is. But he's controversial for reasons I don't want to say on the stream because I don't want to get flagged or demonetized. Let's just say he was found to be a rather unsavory individual, which is unfortunate because that will obviously play against everything we're watching now. But I did want to put that out there because there will be people in the chat who are like, Wendell Stevens, really? So just kind of know that going in. But again, it doesn't take away from the authenticity of maybe some of this evidence he's talking about and whatnot. Like one causality is not always,
right.
know what we're saying. So yeah, we'll continue here.
Okay.
Looks like we're gone again. Are we gone again, guys?
Oh no.
This might be an issue. Let's see. I keep refreshing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Suspended. Oh
darn
it.
Man, I really thought
I don't know why they care
tonight. Yeah.
In the public domain. Darn it.
Like can you guys see us? Let me know. I keep refreshing. Yeah, stream suspended. Bummer.
Yeah. Shoot. Doggone it.
UFOs around the world said, hey, I can suggest something else to watch.
Yeah.
And then Bill says, you're still here for me. Huh.
That's interesting.
This is weird.
He may be running slightly behind.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it sure did.
I'm getting the same thing.
Yeah, me too. Darn it.
I still see you. What the heck is happening? So some people are seeing us and some aren't. Huh.
Hey, Alan, would you make sure that you refresh YouTube and see if you see us then?
Yeah. Yeah, it's still not working for me. Oh my gosh, what a bummer. Everything was going so well.
Shoot.
I'm up to date with stream.
I don't get it.
That is so weird.
And there's no thing that says, like, tell me more, which is rude.
No. How rude.
Just rude.
How rude.
And Jay Allen says, yes, we're live. So I guess they're getting us, but not the documentary.
Huh. So, okay. Give this a watch. Give this a watch, people. Love her. What?
Oh, he must be sending us a link. Let's see.
So, can anyone see and hear us right now? Doc is still there too.
Weird.
But Doc has stopped. Okay. That is so strange.
What happens when you hit the go button on the documentary?
Let's see.
I'm over on YouTube, so let's see.
Okay, yeah, let's give it a try. Okay, apparently we're gone again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be worth it to keep.
Yeah, I think they're going to keep messing with us when we might be doing layered damage.
Right? Yeah, I know. I'm afraid
out of the hole with YouTube.
Yeah. Play the link I sent in the chat. That will work.
We didn't get that link. I
saw where did you
comment, but the link didn't attach.
Yeah, where did he send that? I don't see anything UFOs.
Erica, we will make sure we put it out on the Facebook page and the Twitter page.
Okay.
Thank you, Raphael.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, while Ryan piddles around with this monster over here, known as YouTube, I Googled how many people in this century believe in UFOs. And as of 2021, it was 41%. That seems low.
It does. It does. Yeah. Wow. It's like reversed. That's crazy.
Yeah. Crazy.
How about the UFO incident watch party? Oh, the Betty and Barney Hill movie? No, that'll definitely get us copyright.
We'll get in trouble.
Yeah, UFOs Around the World says it's definitely the audio. I think they're right. Like YouTube, the YouTube AI bots or whatever, they just pick up on audio. I get hit with that all the time.
They need to stop.
Yeah.
Public domain is public domain. It's hitting the fairness button for this lawyer.
Right. I wonder if we tried a different documentary or something. Okay, chat. We're really gonna turn to you guys. What should Suzanne and I watch? Let's go with that.
We're taking ideas. Put them in the comments.
Yeah. Old UFO documentary, copyright free. That's what I'm typing in. Oh, and of course, the first one that pops up is the one we're watching right now.
Yeah.
And it literally says copyright free. You can't make this stuff up.
A Nick Pope interview with Matt Beal.
Ooh, what's that?
I don't know. I'm going to Google it. Let's see.
Let's watch that. I love this. We have ASMR of your keyboard. It's awesome.
I'm sorry, everybody.
No, don't be. You're back. Okay, sometimes it's just okay. Nick Pope interview with Matt Beal. Why not watch some more Nick Pope?
Let's see.
I put Nick Beal. Nick Pope with Matt Beal.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not popping up. Anybody see?
Oh God. No, we're not watching Nick Pope with Matt Beal. It's 4 hours long, and we'll.
Oh my gosh, you found it! I couldn't even find it over here.
We will definitely get a copyright strike on that.
Mint Cornetto, 4 hours. Let's go.
Let's go.
We did 8 yesterday, people. I'm not sure we have 4 in us today.
Do you guys want to watch an Ask Me Anything with Nick Pope from Contact in the Desert? How's that sound?
Sure.
That's a full 1 hour conference. I think that one just popped up for me. It did. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, switching gears, everybody.
I know Contact in the Desert. Like, if they want to copyright strike me, that's totally fine. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't think this would happen, but here we are. I did check to make sure, but again, you never know when it comes to the because it's not people who are monitoring this stuff.
Right.
It's literally the AI algorithms. So
It's like that time I got put in Twitter jail and I couldn't figure out why because I hadn't posted anything. It's like, I need to talk to a human. Why am I in Twitter jail? Oh,
Twitter
mistake.
jail.
Sorry. Like, well, let's don't do that.
Let's don't. All right, cool. All right, impromptu. Let's
Okay.
do this. Ask Me Anything with Nick Pope from Contact in the Desert. Again, we might get immediately copyright, but we'll see. If this doesn't work, we're gonna unfortunately have to wrap things up. But let's give this a try.
Okay.
Nothing like a good pivot, huh, Suzanne?
Exactly. Got to be flexible.
That's what live is all about. I'm all like flustered now. I don't even know where to look. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right, here we go.
All right.
Thank you very much for that, Amanda. And thank you to all the wonderful people doing the AV and all the organization. I mean, it's just a Herculean task, and they're doing an amazing job to make everything run smoothly. And you know, the speakers, are just really grateful. We hardly have to kind of do anything except turn up, which is, you know, not that easy after you've been partying hard in the bar till 1:30. But that's another story. I'm talking about other people, of course, not myself. Okay. So this is going to be an Ask Me Anything. And so it is going to be almost completely your session. I do have one or two things that I just want to say at the outset. In fact, this just happened, and you know, one of the things that I, as a speaker, when I come to Contact in the Desert, like to do is to give as recent news as possible, and sometimes even news about things that are coming up very shortly, so that I'm not just talking about things that happened years ago, which, you know, you probably all know. Not that things that happened years ago aren't sometimes very interesting, but I think that sometimes people really do appreciate breaking news. And so I just want to update you on something that happened literally this morning, about an hour ago. And I did a News Nation interview about the latest twist in the story of David Grush. So now I'm guessing that all of you know who David Grush is, one of the intelligence community whistleblowers who has come forward in recent years, and he's testified, of course, to Congress under oath about the reality of legacy intelligence community programs on crash retrievals, reverse engineering, etc. Now, as I mentioned in my presentation, I think yesterday, and as you may know anyway, of course, the deep state, I mean, this was kind of like the Empire Strikes Back. The deep state elements in the intelligence community caused it to be effectively leaked that family members of David Grush had some concerns about his state of mind and had called the local police. And, you know, obviously the cops showed up and things happened. Now, why was this important? It was important because the story that dropped about this dropped 4 days after David Grush had testified to Congress. I mean, look, one of the things that I was told in the Ministry of Defense, and it's an old saying, and I'm sure you've heard it before, don't believe in coincidences. You know, 4 days after he testifies and this story drops, come on. You know, it was a hit job, right? You know, he had testified and the mainstream media were kind of not sure what to make of it. News Nation, of course, has been very courageous with this, and of course, some of the people involved in that are here at this conference: Ross Coulthart, Bryce Zabel, and others. So News Nation have been crusading on this and on UAP more generally. And of course, once something's in Congress, it's in the congressional record, but you kind of think it's like a hand grenade going off, and you just don't know what's going to happen next.
I'm just going to stop it for a sec, Susan.
Sure.
If anyone is just hopping in, we were going to watch a documentary, but we got stricken from doing that twice now by the YouTube algorithm. So we called an audible, thanks to our really good friend UFOs Around the World, who told us to check out this Contact in the Desert, Ask Me Anything with the late Nick Pope, who we unfortunately lost yesterday. So it's clear he's talking about what were pressing issues at the time, which was the David Grush story where who was it? Klippenstein and whatnot came forward with that hit piece about David Grush and all that. So this is clearly a kind of a dated thing, but I'm sure we will, hear some more stuff that's not so dated. But I just wanted to update.
In one sense, people. Ryan, this is still contemporary in the sense that the appeals coming from it and the legal actions around it in Loudoun County are still ongoing.
Still. Yep. Very good point. You would know that more than anybody. Cool. All right, let's continue.
And clearly, elements in the intelligence community thought, how can we kill this story? News Nation have run with it, and lots of people have watched the hearing, but how can we stop the real big guns? How can we stop the Times and the Post? How can we stop, NBC, CBS, ABC? How can we stop them really running this story? Or if they do run the story, run the story that The Intercept got hold of, i.e., this guy testified, but look, he must be some kind of nut. That's the narrative they wanted. So, as I explained, what happened is that clearly elements in the intelligence community had a conversation with a friendly journalist and said, hey, I can't give you this story, but if you were to look here and put in Freedom of Information Act requests, you might find something. So, of course, he dug, he found out those local police records, the phone call from family members, concerns about the state of mind, the cops showing up, etc. And that's the story that ran. Now, why is this important? Why is it kind of come up again now? It's important because literally tomorrow, unless there is a out-of-court settlement or some legal delay, tomorrow this comes to court. David Grush is suing. And he is suing the local police authority for, as he believes, releasing his personal records without lawful authority. Now,
that's the Loudoun County
I'm not qualified to talk about the legal aspects of this. I mean, obviously, the jury will consider it, and I don't want to talk too much about, of course, a case that has not yet come to court because you never want to make prejudicial judgments.
Okay.
Keep in mind, everybody, that no jury decided that case. The judge threw it out on a technicality, and that is what has gone up on appeal, is that dismissal and whether or not the lawsuit should have been treated as valid and proceeded through the trial process. But a jury never got to make a decision on this.
Okay. What about the new case that he's involved in?
The new case is directly related because what his lawyers did was to send a FOIA asking for all documents related to Mr. Grush, whistleblowers, blah, 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 using all the proper language and making it as broad as possible. It also pointed at times, and they waited 510 days or something with no substantive response, which violates the FOIA law. You have to constantly allow for delivery of anticipated response dates, which at some point they just stopped doing. They did it a couple times and then just stopped. And so that's the new case related to the same stuff, but as a result of FOIA failure.
I see. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I handled Freedom of Information Act requests myself when I was working at the Ministry of Defense. I can tell you, I mean, obviously the law sets out what the exemptions are. And usually there are exemptions for personal information, and particularly if it is medical information. And then there's an overlap between the Freedom of Information Act and things like HIPAA. But look, this is technical. I mean, obviously somebody may have just genuinely made a mistake. It's quite subjective. Like I say, I've handled these sorts of requests myself. I have sat there literally with a black marker pen, because that's how it was done back when I was doing it. And then you have to photocopy it to make sure that, you can't hold it up to the light. But it can be very subjective. Everyone's overworked. So it is perfectly possible that somebody got this request and released it and didn't realize that it was medically exempt. Or the jury may find, no, we think that it's okay and it falls under the law. But look, that's not the point. That's for the jury and the judge to kind of rule on. But the point was, I did this interview this morning, like about an hour and 15 minutes ago, and it's just dropped on, I think they just sent me the link. It came through about, like, that's what I was doing on my phone. I wasn't kind of just surfing the net. News Nation had actually sent me the link to the interview, and they will probably post it on their site. And if not, I've just said, hey, is this something that I can post publicly? I don't see why not. I mean, it was on live TV, for goodness sake. But anyway, the point is that, and I don't know how many of you here were at my presentation yesterday, but I made a very strong statement. I was very clear when I was preparing for this interview this morning. I had in my mind, sort of, you only get like 3.5, 4 minutes for these live interviews. So you really only get 2 little bites at the cherry. And you have to almost talk in sound bites. But I've been trained to do that back when I worked for the government. And I was very clear the sound bite that I wanted to get out. I did get it out. And it's a sound bite that I used yesterday as well. And I basically said, look, the reason that these calls from concerned family members about depression and state of mind came in is that he had served his country in Afghanistan. And I used on live TV this morning the specific phrase, and I might not get it word for word. I said, this is outrageous. I said, we don't mock veterans for having PTSD. We thank them for their service. And the
I can agree with that.
The anchor was so sort of moved by that. She said, well, yeah, and that's a great point, by the way. And then the interview moved on. But I think it was very, very important that I got that on the record. And I'm very kind of, pleased that I managed to have that opportunity to advocate for David Grush and for all the other whistleblowers who are thinking of coming forward. And here's the interesting thing about this. The intelligence community may have been thinking, well, look, this is a kind of, 2 for the price of 1 here. Firstly, we will smear the reputation of David Grush and therefore cast aspersions on his testimony that he gave 4 days ago in Congress. And secondly, maybe we'll deter some other whistleblowers from coming forward. But
that is exactly why I think they did it.
I do
I don't
too.
even think it was so much
It
to
was not
discredit
personal to
him.
David Grush. That's right. It was a bigger, broader target. And I think it worked for a while. This is such a unique moment in UFO time, isn't it? Hearing this in retrospect. We were covering all of this when it was happening, but my goodness, it's a good reminder of what they've been through.
hmm And keep in mind too, right when the whistleblower protection thing was supposed to be going through in the National Defense Bill or what have you, that's when those really, really bad, what was it, Wall Street Journal
Oh,
articles or
yes.
whatever came out by that
The
that
disinformation piece. Yeah,
yeah, that it was some of the worst journalism I've ever seen in a mainstream newspaper.
absolutely.
Just some of the most god awful reporting done, lazy reporting, hack journalism at its absolute worst. I don't recall the author's name of those Wall Street articles, but look them up, guys. Not worth your time reading them unless you want to use them to wipe your ass. That's what I would suggest using them for. But no sourcing, no names, nothing.
And
Which
such a
for
clear hit piece, just a hit piece. That's all
yeah,
it was, and that's what we called it in that moment. We didn't even need time to pass to look back at that, to call it that. That's what it was.
exactly.
Yeah,
Absolutely
Skywatch signal.
horrendous.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Absolutely horrendous. Yep, yep. And it didn't work. That
It did not
story
work.
faded into obscurity. We had a congressional hearing since then, and things have just amped up. So
Yep,
whoever paid off that journalist to write
yep.
that, which I'm guessing were people in Arrow, maybe,
Has to be.
like he took the money and ran, and that shit was
Yeah.
terrible.
Oh, I'm sure Darth Vader over at Arrow did that.
Guess what? It blew up in their face because veterans were so angry at the way that, you know, somebody who had served in Afghanistan was just thrown under the bus by this, that if anything, guess what? It strengthened the resolve of some of the people I'm hearing. And they're like, you know, you want to play dirty? All right, bring it on. You know, the sorts of people who serve in Afghanistan and Iraq and things are not going to be kind of scared by those sorts of tactics. They're going to be, you want to fight? Bring it.
It
Bring
definitely backfired.
So anyway, I just wanted to update you on that kind of breaking news and encourage you all tomorrow to see where this story goes when it does come to court. Of course, it could all fizzle out very often. The deep state may not want some of this to come out because although Grush is suing the police department, the question may come up, well, how did the journalist get this story anyway? And they may not want this story about, well, they found a tame journalist and kind of basically said, dig here, you know? And that being the case, they may decide that they want to encourage people to settle out of court. And of course, very often, if there is an out of court settlement, one of the things it's very hard to get out of in that situation is that the out of court settlement often comes with an NDA, and of course it may be that that means that we don't get to hear more about it. Or he may say, you know what, I'm not taking the deal. I want my day in court. So we'll see how it goes. Like I say, it may fizzle out if there's a delay or an out-of-court settlement, or it may kind of, as the week progresses, it may become a big thing. But keep your eye on it, please, because I think it's a very important part of all this. I mean, all this happened in 2023, but like I say, tomorrow is, according to the schedule, is when it actually comes to court. So kind of watch this space. With that out of the way, I now want to essentially turn it over to all of you, and we can have some questions about what I just said and the wider principles. We can have a conversation about anything that any of you who were in my session yesterday, disclosure, lessons from the pandemic, very controversial presentation for.
I know. Oh gosh.
Where is this? First of all, a Q&A at a UFO conference is deadly. So I'm really looking forward to where this goes. This could be pure entertainment. This might be better than the documentary
Maybe
we were
so.
going to show for sure.
Maybe.
If you're just tuning in, guys, we were going to watch UFOs Are Real from 1979, but we got a copyright strike. Even though it is copyright free, I made sure it's in public domain, but that did not stop the YouTube algorithm from giving us a violation. So unfortunately, we will not be continuing with the documentary tonight. It's on YouTube. You can watch it from Shout Factory right now. They get it because they probably licensed it or something. But yeah, you can go watch UFOs Are Real right on YouTube. After you watch us, we're watching a fun Q&A that Nick Pope, the late Nick Pope, did with Contact in the Desert that was recently released. And yeah, we'll see where his questions and answers lead, and maybe we'll hop in and give our thoughts too, and your thoughts too, guys. Super chat's open if you want to help out the show, and let's continue.
Great.
For those of you that weren't there, we can get into that. For those of you who saw me and lots of other people on the Ancient Aliens panel, you may have some questions about that or about the show Ancient Aliens, the live stage show that we do as a spin-off, Ancient Aliens Live. You may have questions about Rendlesham Forest. You may have questions about anything. If I don't know, I will say, I mean, obviously, I kind of, with my government background, I specialize more in the defense, national security, and safety of flight aspects of this, in the government, the military, the intelligence community aspects. I am not an expert on the more spiritual and New Age side of things. I am not an expert on consciousness.
You're in the wrong place, Nick.
If you get a question on that, I mean, free to ask anything, but you may get a fairly short answer along the lines of, I don't really know. It's not my expertise.
That's the sign of a good witness.
Same with ancient astronaut theory. If you have any questions about ancient aliens, I mean, they tend to have me on the show to discuss the more modern stuff. That being said, obviously, I moderate Ancient Aliens Live, and I tell you, being on a tour with Giorgio Tsoukalos, William Henry, David Childress, Travis Taylor, Jason Martell. Now it's like touring
Ryan
with a rock
Sprague.
band. And every now and then, you know,
kidding.
the lead singer and the lead guitarist get into a fight. No, it's not literally, but we do. You know, we do a show. We can. If you want to know anything about the live show, you can ask me. I don't want to kind of do a glorified advert for it, but.
I just have to say, I've been drunk in an elevator with Giorgio Tsoukalos, and it was one of the funnest experiences of my life. He was so nice, so nice.
I have so many questions around that statement.
He is such a sweet guy, and he's not as crazy as people think he is. He actually wrote a big blurb on the back of my book here for me, which was very kind of him to do. And you know, he reached out when my mom passed away, and we talked for a little while, and he's always like, just out of the blue, will like swoop in and see how I'm doing and stuff. So really nice guy, no matter what you think about Ancient Aliens and all that stuff.
Right.
He really is a good guy and a genuine human being for sure.
That's so good to know.
Yeah,
it is quite fun. We tend to do runs of 4 shows in a row and then go home. So you do a show, you get back to the hotel, you get up at 7 the next morning. They drive you 5 or 6 hours to another city. You rest up in the hotel, you get changed and ready, and you go do another show, and then another, and then another. And by the end of a run of shows, you know, tempers can be a little frayed sometimes. Everyone's friends. You know, there were some moments where Giorgio and David had a little raised voices, but I mean, they're such good friends. It is like the band doing that. It's not like Simon Garfunkel, who really didn't talk to each other outside of the having to appear on stage reluctantly. So this is an AMA. Ask what you like. Just 2 requests, or basically the same kind of request. And there's going to be a microphone coming round. So firstly, do please, raise your hand, wait for the microphone, and when you get it, obviously ask your question. Here is the humble request, out of respect for everyone, and so as we get in everyone's questions, and there may be follow-ups. I might say something that sort of prompts a follow-up from the person who's asking, or from someone else. But out of respect and to enable us to get everyone in, do please make it an actual question.
Thank you, Nick.
Not a download of your kind of worldview and theory, grand unified theory of everything,
Anybody who's
or
ever been
your
to one of
life
those
story
conferences
of
knows this is important.
contacts or sightings. Fascinating though that is, but if we could keep it to, there's nothing wrong with mentioning a personal experience or sighting or something, but if it could be as reasonably concise as possible. Look, I don't want to say what that is time-wise, but I think you'll know it if somebody does kind of overrun. You kind of know what it looks like, right? It's that thing where other people with their hand raised are kind of looking at you and going, can you get to the point? So yeah, just be respectful of each other, and we'll see how it goes. So thanks. Let's I think the first question was over here.
What is the meaning of life?
The men in black are sabotaging this.
Tech issues already.
Always.
It's my understanding that it's the reptiles that took over this planet eons ago.
Okay,
and they're the ones
here we
that
go.
run the government, and they're the ones that want to terraform this planet to they can have it. So this is kind of a 2-part question. So with that understanding, did Eisenhower
body language
really make a pact, a deal with them? And the other part of the question is, what does Trump know about this?
Wow.
Okay. Well, the
gate.
Eisenhower story is interesting. essentially, as you know, but for those that may not, the idea is that there was some sort of treaty signed between certainly the United States government and visiting extraterrestrials, and there are various kind of overlapping, sort of same but different versions of this story. That we were maybe asked to give up our nuclear weapons. Eisenhower refused, but then there was maybe a deal like we'll let you abduct people and mutilate cows and things. In exchange, we'll get some technology like stealth and lasers and whatnot, and
I think was with Eisenhower allegedly, right?
Yeah.
And there's a
Do you
related
know much
story
about this?
Eisenhower going to the dentist.
So I had a guy on the show a while back who wrote a book all about it. Paul, oh my gosh, his last name is escaping me at the moment. But I thought it was complete bunk and whatnot. And then I brought him on the show and read his book, and I was blown away with the amount of evidence and documentation he was able to find on this alleged meeting between Eisenhower and aliens. So I don't know. I don't know, but it's interesting for sure.
Did you have a particularly interesting evidence tidbit that really spoke to you?
It was the written and signed testimony of like a major general or something from the Air Force who claimed that he was there when Eisenhower had to travel from like they made up a emergency for
a dental
him.
appointment or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
And then they brought him out to like Palm Springs or something in California to an Air Force base, and the rest is history. But it was, yeah, it was fascinating. I'll go back in the archives and try to find it for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And you know, did he disappear for 24 hours and visit a military base where there was a landing, do the deal? Then there's a kind of subtext to the story about one of the news channels announced erroneously that he'd had a heart attack and died, and he hadn't. And
maybe that
you
was
know,
it, yeah.
and anyway, I don't know whether or not that's true. I have spoken to Laura Eisenhower, of course, who is Eisenhower's President Eisenhower's great-great-granddaughter. So somebody once said to me, "How do we know that she's Eisenhower's great-great-granddaughter?" And I said, "Well, have you looked at her? I mean, you know, it's you know, my wife's a physical anthropologist, and once you know anything about like bone structure and faces, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And yeah, she may be regarded as the black sheep of the family, but she is in the family, and she of course says this is real. I don't know. I don't have any direct information that would either confirm or deny that.
So, I just put a link in the
I can't
chat
really say. And as for reptilians
for my interview,
there
again,
it is.
Not sure about that. I mean, yeah, arguably any civilization, if that's what we're dealing with the technology to, you know, do viable interstellar travel, probably has the technology to walk among us unseen. You know, however that works. I'm sure you've seen, obviously, TV sci-fi series like V. Who remembers V? And oh yeah, remember the
what
eating
year
of the
was
hamster
that?
Scene. and of course that played into
maybe 70s
this narrative that there are reptilians walking among us and secretly ruling the world.
1983.
There are some dangers with those sorts of theories. You know, there are just as you know, small group of powerful family and international bankers who secretly rule the world is often a sort of coded anti-Semitic kind of thing. You know, yeah, I think we have to be a little bit careful about this reptile thing, and you know, it's sometimes used as a cover. Not here, obviously. I mean, people genuinely believe, you know, reptiles are reptiles, you know, like alien reptiles. But I think in some of the darker corners of the conspiracy theory community, there is a sort of slightly unpleasant undertone to that. But
David Icke,
I don't know whether it's true or not. Trump, you know, there was an interesting thing in his first term. He went to North Korea, obviously, to do that historic meeting with Kim Jong-un.
Oh yeah, I forgot that happened.
And Tucker Carlson
Bromance.
went on Air Force One with him and did a kind of special report. And obviously the first part of the report was, and I think this was in Japan, on the way back. They did a stop in Japan before coming back to the US. And so Tucker Carlson did a sit-down interview with Trump, and they'd had dinner on Air Force One earlier. He did a sit-down interview and firstly talked about North Korea, and, you know, was this the start of was this a diplomatic breakthrough? And then Tucker, you know, flipped the narrative and asked President Trump, you know, what about all this UFOs? And Trump was, you know, he said, well, I'm not really a believer myself, but I've talked to some pilots, and our very fine pilots have seen some things that they can't explain, and I know a few things. And he's done one or two follow-up interviews over the years. But the interesting thing, just speaking personally about this, is that I mean, I was a regular contributor on Tucker Carlson Tonight. I think I appeared 13 or 14 times on that show. So Tucker literally he shows the clip of his interview with the president, and then he turns to me and says, "Hey, Nick, what do you think of the president's comments?" So I do an interview on that. But a few weeks later, we turned the tables on Tucker, and after him having interviewed me so often, I, for an episode of Ancient Aliens, went to interview him. And so I went to his office, and we did an interview about what happened on Air Force One, and you know what the conversation was, and that's in an episode of Ancient Aliens. And then, I don't like to be a tease, but I can't resist this. After the interview, when the cameras were safely off, you know, we had a little bit more of a frank conversation about this, and it was very interesting. And so fast forward to the second term, and I think I haven't talked to Steve Bassett about this, but I think sort of instinctively, whatever your politics are, instinctively, you know that a kind of populist maverick president in their second term is probably the most likely president to disclose ever, assuming that they are, you know, read onto the program. I mean, some people, of course, claim that even presidents aren't briefed on it. I don't believe that for a moment, because in government you have something which in the UK we called it the culture of no surprises. And it was basically, it meant that on all major issues, the senior leaders, both political and military, had to know. You can't have a situation where the chairman of the Joint Chiefs comes running into the Oval Office and says, "Mr. President, the situation with the aliens has really kind of escalated," only for the president to go, "What aliens?" So if there is a smoking gun, I am absolutely convinced that each and every president is briefed on this in their capacity.
No, Bill Clinton wasn't
as commander-in-chief. Really.
Definitely not.
So I think we're at an interesting time. Obviously, on the first evening in the Oval Office in the second term, he was signing those executive orders. The creation of the task force on the declassification of federal secrets specifically says that they will look at JFK, RFK, MLK, Epstein client list. Good luck with that one. COVID origins.
That's still fighting that fight.
Some 9/11 issues and UAP/USOs. So there is a mandate, and Anna Paulina Luna is heading that up. We'll see where she goes with this. We'll see how that ties in with wider congressional initiatives. Obviously, Congress are still interested in David Grush, and Congress are going to be following very closely what happened at this court case. There are, as I mentioned, other whistleblowers waiting to come forward. Jay Stratton, who headed up the UAP task force, has written a book, which is currently going through the security clearance process at DOPSA.
Where is that book, Suzanne? Where is that Jay Stratton book? It's been like 2 years since they announced it.
Yeah, we're still waiting.
I did you see that controversial article that the Sentinel Network put out?
Yes.
Ooh.
I know. Are we going to cover it on Sunday? Oh my gosh.
We probably should touch on it. Yeah.
Probably.
But it has to do with Elizondo and Jay Stratton and a lot of that stuff that's been going on. But yeah, I am interested to hear about any updates on Jay Stratton for sure.
Too. And the Sentinel does such incredible reporting. Guys, remember that this is who really put the research together on the missing General McCaslin and all the people associated with him and tied all the connectors. So it's coming from a good source.
Yeah. Who that source is, we don't know. They are still anonymous. I worked with them and I still don't know who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to ufology.
And I bet that's the only way to stay safe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Defense Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review at the Pentagon. So again, we'll see where that goes. So if there is a smoking gun, this Trump second term is probably when that smoking gun will go off, because again, whatever you think of Trump, whatever your politics, can you imagine Trump not wanting to write himself into history as the disclosure president? Because that is going to be the most famous press conference of all time. It's going to be the most, everyone, even now, decades after Pearl Harbor, we can all in our mind's eye, I'm sure, hear FDR's voice saying, "A day that will live in infamy," right? Well, can you imagine the orders of magnitude above and beyond that it will be if the president goes on live TV, all the major networks, Oval Office, 8 p.m. Eastern, weekday evening, my fellow Americans, people of the world, we are not alone. Do you think Trump could resist that? Humanity will go on. We will reach the stars. But in millions and millions of years' time, people will still look back and watch that broadcast and watch that man make that announcement and change the world forever. Do you think he could resist it? I don't. So, yeah, thank you for the question.
He wasn't wrong.
Hello, Nick.
That's right.
Was that your presentation yesterday? It was fantastic. Agreed with everything you said on COVID. That was fun. My question for you today. All the things you were able to see at the Ministry of Defense, all of your time on Ancient Aliens, all of the crash retrievals that you know about, all of the sightings you've seen, of all of them, which one is your favorite incident and why?
Good question.
My favorite incident is the Rendlesham Forest
in my top
incident. It's to me,
absolutely,
it's right up there with Roswell, and I would argue in some ways above
better
Roswell.
100%
Firstly, because
better.
it's more recent. Secondly, because most of the major, in fact, all of the major witnesses are still with us and can be questioned in a way that we just can't do with Roswell.
There's also documentation of Rendlesham Forest. There are no documents on the Roswell UFO incident. Isn't that crazy to think
so
about?
Nuts. It's
There's
so
not.
nuts.
There's like a couple memos, like that one. Gosh, I'm forgetting the name of it. There's a famous memo. But General Ramey, yeah. But like other than that, there's nothing on Roswell. Apparently, all the files on Roswell had been destroyed at some point, which is insane. It
is nuts. And we know how easily, from talking to David Marler, that can happen. If somebody's not in the right room at the right time with the right question and the right interest, they get destroyed.
Especially back then. Very good point. Very good point.
Colonel Charles Holt, John Burroughs, Jim Peniston, a number of the others, the radar operators who've talked about it being tracked on radar. We have the declassified Ministry of Defense file that contains, amongst other things, the Defense Intelligence staff assessment of the radioactivity levels taken at the landing site, where it says in black and white in this declassified file that is on the National Archives website. So it's not like it's not like in the old days where I don't know, documents turned up in the mailbox of some UFO researcher and everyone was like, are these real or not? This is literally the Ministry of Defense declassifying the Rendlesham file and digitizing it and putting it on the National Archives website. and it talks about the
What a
radioactivity
concept of a thing
levels
to
at the
do.
landing site, because this was a landing, not lights in the sky, as seeming to be significantly higher than the average background. And like I say, also radar operators testifying that it was simultaneously tracked on radar. And again, there's another document which talks about how Commander-in-Chief, United States Air Force in Europe, General Gabriel, flew to Bentwaters immediately after this incident and took possession of various items of physical evidence, almost certainly the soil samples that were taken, the sides of the trees were scorched and burnt where this thing came down. And you know, if you know what type of radiation you're dealing with, it can maybe tell you something about the propulsion system, the energy source. The British government never likes to criticize the US government. However, in a very sort of sarcastic British civil service language, we in one of the letters sort of said this is you know, these items were removed. I wonder if we might be allowed to look at them, you know, which is, you know, you could tell that the anger. Well, I could, reading, you know, you know how to read these documents, you know, it's like whatever field you're in, there's a language, and you know, sometimes it goes beyond just the words on the page, and you can read and say, I know what they're really saying here. And what they were saying was that my predecessors were furious that these items of evidence had been removed from the UK and taken to his General Gabriel's headquarters in Ramstein, Germany. And after that, the trail went cold. I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up back in the Pentagon somewhere. We'll see. Maybe. I mean, I know that all the UAP task force folks and the ATIP folks and the ORSAP folks, they all knew about Rendlesham and many of the other high-profile British cases. But Rendlesham remains my favorite case. And I mean, for those that don't know, I did a cold case review of, I mentioned my predecessors. My predecessors dealt with this because it happened in 1980, before I even joined the Ministry of Defense. But I did a cold case review because I felt that some things had been missed, just like cops every now and then dust off an old unsolved case and say, hey, what did we miss? Is there any new evidence in? And so I looked again at the radioactivity levels. For example, I found some documents that had not been released, and that's out there. But I teamed up with two of the main witnesses, actually, John Burroughs and Jim Peniston, and we literally wrote a 100,000-word book, Encounter in Rendlesham Forest. And any case that is so rich that you can write a 100,000-word book on it is a case that's worth people's time. And it's the only UFO book that I'm aware of that needed security clearance both from the British Ministry of Defense and from the Pentagon. And
fantastic book, by the way. That they brought forward the Project Condign in that book, which was a top secret Ministry of Defense program that was looking at the after effects of UFO encounters on people. And this was the only reason we learned about all of that going on with the Rendlesham case. So it was really well done. Really well done, Paul.
Cool.
You know, because obviously I was writing from the background and perspective of somebody who had handled the UAP issue for the British government, and John and Jim as former US Air Force kind of personnel, they were subject to the DOPSA rules The same thing when Lou Elizondo wrote his book, had to go through DOPSA. When David Grush testified to Congress, his written statement had to go through DOPSA. Jay Stratton's book is currently going through DOPSA. Although I've not spoken to Jay for a while. Maybe he's got his clearance by now, but I don't know when the book will actually drop. We'll see. It's going to be HarperCollins, so one of the big six. And Encounter in Rendlesham Forest was with one of the big six as well. So, you know, I was very, very glad to have that opportunity to collaborate with John and Jim and do that. So, yeah, Rendlesham Forest is my answer to that.
I'm from Europe, and I would like to know if you're aware if European countries other than the UK also had their own UFO programs, and did you have, as an official of the UK Defense Minister, contact with colleagues from friendly nations and exchanged maybe knowledge and intelligence?
I'll take the second part of the question first. There is surprisingly little international collaboration. And one of the reasons for that is just bureaucratic, that the UFO program that I worked on, our terms of reference were written in such a way as to really only cover what we called the United Kingdom Air Defense Region. And so we had no real jurisdiction to go outside of that. Now, common sense, obviously, and hence your question, should dictate that why wouldn't we want to share some information with allies? But we were in a difficult position. I mean, when I was doing this job, the UK didn't even have its Freedom of Information Act. I did the UFO job from 1991 to 1994. Britain didn't get its Freedom of Information Act until 2000, and it didn't even come in fully into force because there was such a lot of setup till January 1st, 2005. So we were kind of off the radar a little bit, and we knew that if we had done too much liaising overseas, it would have gotten out, and members of the British Parliament might have said, hey, why are we spending taxpayers' money on UAP? And you know, so we liked to downplay the extent of our interest, and that the best way to do that is to be very literal and say, well, we're only interested in things in British airspace. That being said, to the first part of your question, yeah, almost every European country has had some sort of UFO program, usually embedded in either their Air Force or their Department of Defense. Most of the Scandinavian countries, so Norway, Sweden, Denmark, absolutely. Italy
I didn't know that.
has a program which, and I met one of the Air Force officers who headed that up. France is the interesting
UFO
one here. France is one of the very few countries that embeds its UFO program not in the Department of Defense or the Air Force, but actually in the French National Space Center.
There you go.
So they have a different model for doing it. And, you know, people can get into a debate about whether it's a better or a worse or an equal model, but it's a different model because it tends to be more science and astronomer-led than say, Air Force or just more general DoD-led. And so actually, of all the European programs, the French is probably the most expansive and best known. And there are some declassified files out from some of the other countries I mentioned, but France is the best place that they actually have a website, which is GEIPAN, which is GEIPAN, which is part of the French National Space Center, which I think is CNES, but GEIPAN. And I actually met one of the heads of GEPIN, who was a man called Jacques Patenay. And so we did swap some information. And I also, when I was at the Ministry of Defense, I did liaise also with the Belgians on occasion. And there was a senior Belgian officer, colonel at the time, but later General Wilfred de Brouwer, who handled the investigation into a very high-profile series of sightings that took place in Belgium late in 1989, but coming to a climax on March 30th and March 31st, 1990. And General de Brouwer investigated this. F-16s the UFO was tracked on radar. Two F-16 fighters were launched to try and intercept it. The pilots then picked up the UFO on their airborne radar, so it was being tracked both on the ground and on the airborne radar. The UAP then broke the lock, maneuvered very suddenly and rapidly, so they lost their radar lock, and the pilots had to kind of reacquire it. This happened multiple times. They never actually closed to a visual sighting. I mean, this was at night. And so, yeah, I had discussions with General de Brouwer about this, and I had earlier discussions with our defense attaché in Belgium. And I think they actually interviewed both General de Brouwer and the two F-16 pilots. So there has been some liaison, but not as much as I would like to see. I mean, obviously, some people say, look, this is a global phenomenon. Maybe the United Nations should take a role, and that has been suggested before. I had some discussions actually at a scientific conference, just in the margins, literally over the coffee and cookies and things, with Dr. Mazlan Othman, who she headed up the UN Office of Outer Space Affairs, which would have been the place for this, and then the Committee for the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. But she was very clear. The United Nations didn't want the job. And so, yeah, that's kind of where things stand. There is the occasional initiative in Europe to maybe say that NATO should take a role. At the moment, the only international alliance that is looking at UAP is the so-called Five Eyes, which is the intelligence sharing alliance.
I thought he was going to say MUFON.
United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand. So the Five Eyes.
Yeah.
They, in May 2023, started a process by establishing a sort of UAP caucus working group. And it was held at the Pentagon. We know that two officers from British intelligence attended that meeting, and all the other Five Eyes nations were represented. So, yeah, there's some international collaboration, but not as much as you would think, and not as much as I would hope.
I am an ordained minister with a mainline Protestant denomination here in the country, and I'm kind of curious how many of us there are here at the conference. We don't readily identify ourselves, but that's not my question. And my question is not religious or spiritual, it's more kind of sociological. At some point, if your timeline on disclosure happening during Trump's term is accurate, do you have any wisdom or advice on developing a strategy for the leaders of faith communities and global religions, but certainly the Abrahamic ones that are very specific on what they believe and don't believe about God, how to begin preparing them for disclosure? I'm very curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, first of all,
What an interesting question.
Yeah, and this is one of my favorite topics.
Hypothetical disclosure or religion and UFOs?
What needs to be done hypothetically to get a planet ready to find out this big news?
Interesting. Now, I'll tease a little bit. This upcoming Sunday on the live stream, we're going to be sharing a story that was in Psychology Today, actually, the very prominent magazine, about what would happen psychologically to people if disclosure were to happen. So I'm
Right.
excited to break that
Me
down with you
too.
this Sunday. Yeah.
Me too.
All right. Let's see what the late Nick Pope has to say about this.
Well, I should say that Danny Sheehan, who of course is here at the conference, has actually been, and he's a Jesuit, I believe, and he has actually been doing some work on that very issue. But more generally, certainly the Catholic Church, for some years now, has been quietly, trying to make sure that they don't repeat the mistakes of the past and burn anyone at the stake for saying that the Earth goes around the sun. If we find aliens and that they incorporate that into doctrine. The Vatican, of course, has its own observatory. And as far back as 2008, the then director of that Vatican observatory, Father Jose Gabriel Fuentes, I believe, gave an interview where he said there's no doctrinal objection to the existence of extraterrestrial life because, as he phrased it, man may place no creative limits upon God. And, like if God wants to populate the universe with all sorts of species, it's not for skeptics down here to say, well, there couldn't be aliens.
I love that. This reminds me so much of I've told the story of when I went to confession to my Catholic priest.
Yes.
And I went in there and I was like, "Dear Father," and instead of confessing my sins, I was like, "Is it okay that I believe in aliens?" And there was this long dramatic pause, and he was just like, "What?" And he was like, "My son, yes, it's okay. God is all powerful. God creates more than just us. And of course you can." And I loved that. And that really meant a lot to me at the time because I was super religious at the time. I was an altar boy, and all that stuff. And I was really like goo for God at the time. And I thought it was a sin to like believe in this stuff. That it's what's funny? I've never told this story, but I met this person who was a born again Christian, and I remember they specifically said to me, "You need to stop doing all this UFO stuff. You need to it's demonic, and you're going to hell if you continue pursuing
Wow.
this." And I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" People literally believe this stuff. Look at the Collins elite. This
Yeah,
whole thing
absolutely.
within the Pentagon of these people who believe that all UFOs are demons and all that. It's
And I always thought, gosh, for these folks wrapped in all that, your God must be really small. If you need to limit him or her this way.
Exactly. Interesting stuff. Sorry, I'll let Nick keep talking.
Okay, great.
So the Catholic Church is kind of signed up for this. And indeed, I believe, I can't remember whether it was Pope Benedict or Pope Francis, I think it might have been Pope Francis, was actually asked, would you baptize an alien, essentially? And the question was a little flippant, and the media reporting of it was, but I think the essential answer was that there was no particular impediment to that in doctrinal terms. So the Catholic Church has been doing this, and organizations like the Templeton Foundation have been funding some conferences which have tried to bring together scientists and theologians to discuss certainly the societal impact of first contact and or disclosure, which may be two different things, of course, because it may unfold in different ways. I mean, we saw just a few weeks ago, of course, this paper dropping about potential biosignature from an exoplanet around a fairly nearby star. Not yet officially validated, but if it is, as it may well be, and we may find not just a biosignature, but a technosignature, which would probably be even more definitive in terms of often with the biosignatures, the skeptical argument is, well, is it biology or is it just geology? Well, what's been found recently certainly doesn't match any known geological process here on Earth. But you could always say, well, maybe there's something different out there. Anyway, they're still trying to validate those findings and things. But anyway, the point is that there have been some conferences where theologians and astrophysicists and cosmologists have been brought together. In fact, in 2010, I attended 2 Royal Society discussion meetings in the UK. The first one was called The Discovery of Extraterrestrial Life and the Consequences for Science and Society. And the second one was called Towards a Societal Agenda on Extraterrestrial Life. And it was multidisciplinary: astrophysicists, cosmologists, chemists, biologists, but also anthropologists, psychologists, and theologians. And it may not surprise you to know that probably the biggest row at this conference did come over the religion argument and whether people would or not be able to incorporate it into their worldview. And from memory, I think Paul Davies, the physicist, got into quite a heated argument with Ted Peters, a theologian, about whether Christian belief, and particularly the uniqueness of the crucifixion and the resurrection to save us from our sins, if that happens on a zillion other planets, anyway, I won't go into that, but conversations are being had. And in 2011, I went to a conference in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. It was part of the Global Competitiveness Forum, so essentially the Arab world's equivalent of Davos and the World Economic Forum. And we had a panel there, and I mean, literally, it was like, President Clinton was there, Prime Minister Tony Blair was there, not in their capacity. I mean, they had stepped down by then, but just to give you a sense of how high profile this was, CEOs of Google, Boeing, all the big companies. And I was on a panel with a number of people, and the panel was called Contact Learning from Outer Space. And there was an Islamic scholar who was one of the panelists there. And he was looking, for example, in the Quran at various passages and references, for example, to the many worlds, plural, and saying that might, with the Islamic faith, open the door for acceptance of extraterrestrial life in the terms that it's not inconsistent with what's in the Quran.
I wanted to interject here. I think it's important to note that every major religion, especially like the monotheistic ones, and all of pretty much every religion, believes in otherworld beings.
Exactly.
Every single one of them, which I
Not to
find
mention
pretty
all the
fascinating.
Native peoples as well. It's not just, the Christian faiths or whatever. The indigenous people have a long and I think very healthy history in this subject.
Mm-hmm. The Star People, for sure. There's a set of books by Artie Sixkiller, if anyone hasn't read them, that collects hundreds of stories of Native American, Pueblo, or, Native American, First Nations, everywhere, indigenous people's experiences. Look her up, look up her books. They're so good. Artie Sixkiller. What hell of a name. Hell of a name.
No kidding.
Yeah. Anyways, I just thought that was important to bring up. Every single religion out there believes in some sort of non-human or otherworldly presence beyond God. So I think that's pretty interesting.
I think so too.
So conversations are being had. I think it is, of all the societal impact questions, because whether we get disclosure or first contact, or however it unfolds, whether it's something up close and personal or something very distant but still definitive, it will be the day the world changes. And there will be deep and profound implications for almost every aspect of human life and existence: politics, religion, science, technology, the economy, arts and leisure, philosophy. But religion, of all those societal impact things, you kind of intuitively think that religion is maybe going to be the most awkward one. And despite the fact that these conversations are taking place, when the rubber actually hits the road, it may get a little bit spiky, shall we say. But it's a very interesting aspect of all this. Danny Sheehan knows far more about it than I do. I did actually, for those of you who watch Billy Carson's Forbidden Knowledge, thank you, TV channel, I did actually create and host an entire series called After Contact, about what would happen the day after. And we took a different issue each episode, and I did, as host, a one-on-one interview and so I had Ted Peters on for a whole hour episode about this. So if you want to look at an in-depth conversation about this, check out my interview with Ted Peters. And also, even though Danny Sheehan was there really for an episode on the law, we segued into religion as well. So yeah, it's a fascinating aspect of all this for sure.
Glad we got lizard people out of the way.
Really curious on how I'm a contactee, and it happened as a child. So I've known my whole life, and I've been watching as people are awakening to it. So I'm always curious, people in your position, you're in the DOD, were you a believer before? Have you had contact? I'm always just really curious, like with you being, very out there, have they contacted you?
They haven't. So that's, now, I now live in Tucson, Arizona, so we've got, big skies, and if ever there's a place to have a contact, maybe that's it, and maybe my day will come. But no, I have never seen a UFO. I have never had a contact experience or any kind of paranormal experience. And when I was given this job in the Ministry of Defense, and the Ministry of Defense is just the UK equivalent of the DOD here, and I was a civilian employee for 21 years. 3 years I was posted basically to what we colloquially called the UFO desk. And for anyone wondering this, because this sometimes comes up as a question, people say, how can you talk about this at all? The answer is, I can talk about things that are unclassified, and I can talk about things that have been declassified, and I can talk as a sort of general insider perspective about all the breaking news stories here in the US. So that's kind of how I can talk. So I came into that job really fairly skeptical, not knowing much about it, but changed my mind as I began to read into the archive of files, and of course began to get the cases that came in on my watch. Now, most of those, I have to say, were UAP cases, not alien contact, alien abduction cases, but I did get those cases, and I did look at those cases, and I did afterwards carry on, interacting. People would come to me because my name was known through doing this job. We were a public-facing, we did some classified work, but we were essentially a public-facing program, more like Blue Book than ATIP. Although, as I said in response to the question over there, even though our existence was not a secret, we tended to downplay the scope of our interest and involvement in this. but I kept up my interest. People, because my name was out there, came to me with cases, and I, in fact, I wrote way back now. It seems an age ago, but in 1997, I actually had a book published with Simon & Schuster. So again, one of the big six, on alien abductions, called The Uninvited. And the first part of the book was just a sort of historical overview, looking at folklore, for example, the work of Jacques Vallée, drawing
I was
parallels
seeing if I
between
had that in my
folklore,
library.
accounts of interaction with the little people, and modern alien abduction reports, going back through the contactees, the abductees, Bud Hopkins, John Mack, Dave Jacobs, some of their cases. And then in the second half of the book, I actually did a deep dive into some lesser known UK cases that I had looked at in depth, just to show how bizarre and surreal some of this is. And I remember, actually, I just recently did an interview with Chris Ramsey, one of the podcasters and TV hosts who's here. He's the one doing the magic tricks. He's a professional magician and comedian, but he also has a really good podcast. He's had Lou Elizondo on. He had me on, flew me up to Canada to do the interview in the studio. And I mean, it's a big podcast. My interview, which has only been up for about a month, has over 1 million views on YouTube. And I actually started that interview. If you watch it, it starts, then you'll be 1,000,001. It starts with a case that I can only call Aliens in the Art Shop. I won't go into it now, but I'll let anyone that wants to kind of look at it see. So just search on Area 52, Nick Pope, Chris Ramsey, and it will come up, and you will see the Aliens in the Art Shop case, because he did a great question. He said, is there one case that kind of still sticks out in your mind and just makes you shake your head and go, what? Even after these years, but a case you haven't really talked about. And I thought, well, I put it in The Uninvited, the book from, I guess, nearly 30 years ago now. But I literally, I'd almost forgotten about it. It's so bizarre. So yeah, thanks for that question.
Hi. There's recently been two explanations for one, the Tic Tac video, and the other, the jellyfish video that's coming across, saying the jellyfish was nothing but a balloon floating across the bases, and the Tic Tac was just one of the contractors demoing their latest creation.
I completely forgot about that. Remember Ross Coulthart said he knows for sure that the Tic Tac is man-made? Whatever happened to that follow-up?
Just fell off, didn't it? Just gone.
Whoa.
And you know what else fell off? Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp saying that more whistleblowers were coming out, that they were waiting in the wings.
We need some updates, guys. Come on. Coulthart, Corbell, Knapp, get on it. Don't get lazy on us now. Do not get lazy. Don't make Matthew Brown do all the work. That's all I'm
right.
gonna say. Yeah, but I want to follow up on why Ross believes he knows for sure that the Tic Tac was man-made. But maybe Nick Pope will give us some insight here. I'll continue.
So what do you think of that? I just know, after working in the DoD for 31 years, that, you know, as civilians and military, we don't really run the programs. Yeah, we're program managers, but all the cool stuff is in the contractors. So I'm just curious what your take on that is.
Yeah, I think, and as you say, I mean, the specific allegation is somebody told Representative Eric Burleson that it was Lockheed Martin was behind the Tic Tac incident. I haven't spoken to them about it, but I think people like David Fravor and Alex Dietrich, some of the pilots who've actually kind of interacted with this are very skeptical, given the restricted airspace that would be the sort of blind test, and they've gone into all sorts of reasons, very technical kind of pilot airspace management reasons why they say it couldn't be a test, and something like that wouldn't have been authorized for safety of flight reasons. I don't know enough about the rules. I mean, sometimes you instinctively feel that there'd have to be a blind test of something, but not to the point that you would risk killing your pilots and knocking a multi-million-dollar jet out of the sky. So the rules allow you to do some things, but not others. I don't know where the line is. I mean, this, all I would say in response to that is, yeah, great. As you say, those counter theories have been put out there, and it's now up to Congress as it continues to try and hold the DoD and others to account for this. It's up to Congress to either validate those claims or to push back against them and counter those claims. And that can really only be done with data. So I hope that will continue. What it does seem to me, I'll have to say, just as I think elements in the intelligence community are trying to disparage the reputation of David Grush, I don't think it's any coincidence that fairly close together there has been an attempt to kind of shoot down, pun intended, I guess, the sort of crown jewel cases. Because it's like, okay, we've got the Tic Tac incident, we've got the Middle East jellyfish incident. If one by one you can discredit the main whistleblowers and then cast doubts upon the kind of crown jewel cases, then in a sense, the whole house of cards might come down. And maybe that's the plan. So it's for the House Oversight Committee, it's for the Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets, it's for the Senate Armed Services Committee, it's for the other parts of Congress, both in the Senate and the House, to ask questions and to continue to, when they hear something like this, to bring, if necessary, the director of Arrow or other people as necessary, bring them forward and say, we want a briefing on this.
Hey, Suzanne, do you mind if I pull something up really quick?
Sure, go ahead.
I just got sent this on Twitter. Eric Burlinson just put out a statement on Twitter about whistleblowers. I don't know what it's in reference to.
Oh.
I haven't looked at it yet, but do you mind if I pull it up quick?
No,
We'll just
please
read it
do.
and then we will continue. We'll go through the rest of this. There's not a ton left, but let me pull up this here. I just lost the contact in the desert thing, but we'll pull it back up. Okay. So I don't even know if it's worth it, but here it is. Eric Burlinson just put this on Twitter. He said, contrary to what you may have heard, Congress can lawfully receive classified UFO information. No one has been imprisoned, let alone prosecuted or sued for disclosing classified information to members of Congress in a secure setting. The government's own form NDAs preserve Congress' statutory rights to receive information. NDAs that say otherwise are unenforceable. Threatening whistleblowers for going to Congress is illegal. Although the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act prohibits it, employment retaliation remains a risk. That's why we need better UFO whistleblower protection. Whistleblowers who go to Congress outside of that could possibly be fired. But Congress takes seriously its duty to protect national security and whistleblowers while extending its constitutional oversight in the name of transparency. It's time we get to the truth.
Yeah. So this has to be related to what I mentioned earlier, where there's some new chitter chatter brewing around about taking better care of our whistleblowers. And I bet that he has been directly involved in this. Of course, I don't know, but this strong statement, first of all, it sounds very much like the Disclosure Foundation's statement, sort of a legal statement on how this actually works and that whistleblowers are safe for going to Congress in a classified environment. They got to be in a SCIF. But I bet this is all related to that. Maybe we'll see some movement. Maybe they are seeing something out there on the political landscape that would move these protections forward right now.
Yeah, like why did he just drop this right now? I wonder. Something's a brewing, guys.
Something's going. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have a breaking story for you, either before we leave tonight or possibly for Sunday. We'll see. We'll see.
That's right. Excellent.
Wow. Yeah, I just thought I would share that because he just posted this. But okay, let's get back to Nick Pope.
Okay.
The late Nick Pope. We'll finish out this AMA. One sec. Okay. Here we go.
Great.
And get to the bottom of it. But yeah, I'm tracking all this with interest. But like I say, I do see a wider strategy of trying one by one to kind of knock down the key whistleblowers and the key cases.
Oh, yeah. So just two related quick questions. One is there was a story about 2 years ago about, I think he was the head of the Israel's version of NASA. And the story popped up for about, the story popped up for about 2 days where he came out with this rather extraordinary claim about this intergalactic federation that was in touch with the United States. And he was a brigadier general in the Israeli army, not known for making up, things like that. And then the story disappeared completely. I was just wondering if you can comment on the veracity of it.
Yeah. I mean, this is the Haim Eshed story, and he is absolutely, he's known as the godfather of the father of the Israeli space program. The book was in Hebrew, and I don't believe it's been fully translated into English, and that's one of the problems because, the story got out in Israel, and then people were just translating kind of the relevant bit without getting the context. Plus, I think he's pretty elderly now, and short answer is I don't know. I mean, it was an absolutely amazing claim. He said all these stories about the Galactic Federation are true. We were ready to join, and then at the last moment, we were told humanity is not ready. And I mean, he is who he says he is, and he seems to have said what he said he said. But whether he's kind of gone off the deep end or whether it was something a little bit more tongue-in-cheek and something's gotten lost in translation, I'm afraid I don't know. We've got about 20 minutes left. So as I still see quite a few hands up, I'm going to pick up the pace. If you could all do your part and try and make the questions really concise, I will do my part and try and make my answers more concise, and we'll try and get everyone in.
So over here, and I'm sorry, my question was right before you gave that warning. So if I can just indulge you for just about a minute for the question. It's more of an esoteric question that I think only maybe you might be able to answer. Jumping on point for many skeptics, there's two different models that seem to be about how the visitors might be looking at humanity. And there are two different contrasts. On one hand, there's the model of the omnipotent, extremely advanced, presence that's looking down at humanity, studying them like an ant colony, right? There's not much really understanding at a granular level, just seeing the worker bees move around. On the other hand, that's a huge contrast to the idea that they understand maybe our culture to some degree. I mean, if they're tapping into our nuclear warhead computers, then they must know the internet. If there are hybrids, they have to be walking around with iPhones and getting spam. They must know who President Trump is or Putin, or maybe even our music. And I've even heard some claims about humor or whimsy that some experiencers or even in the military have seen the way these craft will fly around. That's a stark contrast to that they're just looking down at us as ants. And with that, with your experience, any comments on how you might perceive it? Not that any of us really have an answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first point I'd make is that you know, if we are being interacted with by a non-human intelligence, firstly, we're not necessarily all saying that that's extraterrestrial. It may be other things. It may be interdimensional or intertemporal, but also, and those things aren't mutually exclusive. But also, if there are, let's just talk about extraterrestrials, there might be multiple civilizations interacting with us, because, you know, the chances of there being two civilizations in the universe, i.e. us plus one, are probably as ridiculously small as the chances of it just being us. That being the case, there might be competing agendas and such like, plus the fact that we will all, you know, UFO witnesses and particularly experiencers will kind of take an anthropocentric view of this and sometimes maybe project their own, you know, worldview and culture and language and background into all this. But, you know, my take, if I had to pick, I would say they're coming here as anthropologists, because to any civilization with the technology to come here, you know, we're not going to have anything to teach them about science or technology and things, but they might be interested in the more abstract things, our political systems, our religions, our architecture, music, art, comedy, those sorts of things. So
UFO podcasts.
My kind of best assessment would be they are intergalactic anthropologists come to look at this crazy emerging civilization down here.
Thanks, Nick. On that note, being there's been societies before us, millions of years, whatever, and anthropologically, like your wife would know, the newest thing, Easter Island, the statues being tall, the big people, what's your take on that? Like the Anunnaki, and you know, all the scriptures and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really my area of expertise. I know Jason Martell, who's here, is very much an expert on the Anunnaki and the Sumerians, but just touring with Jason and the rest of the Ancient Aliens crew, absolutely. I've kind of, since the tour started in May 2022, I think I've had my eyes opened a little bit more into this side of it, and absolutely, though I'm not an expert, many, many more things from our past are now making me go, And of course, it's interesting, the timeline. When I was a kid, we were told that the oldest civilization was probably the Babylonians and the Sumerians. And now we have Göbekli Tepe and the other tepes pushing that timeline back more like 12,000 years. And of course, because of the rising sea levels, you just instinctively know that that timeline is going to go much further back, and people like Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval and things are probably going to be proven right.
Hello. Okay, I'm from Panama. I came all the way, and I'm a physical anthropologist, and I do work with indigenous people. And I would like to know if you have ever collaborated with researchers in Central America or in the Latin region in regards to UAP sightings or data from the region.
Yeah, I have not, but Jaime Maussan in Mexico who I've met a few times. He does a lot of work, and he collaborates. I know, I mean, he obviously specializes in Mexico, but he collaborates, I mean, not least because of the language, with some of the other Central and South American countries. And I know that, is it Rex Org is here, and now he's a Native American from the United States, but he may well have some contacts with indigenous peoples in Central and Southern America. So if you see him, it might be worth asking him. So I personally have not, but I think other researchers have, and obviously that's, you know, an important part of the story to get.
We have lots of data, and I have never seen things, but I talk to people, and there's so much data to collect.
Well, I hope, yeah, and two other people I should mention, the Navajo Rangers, Stan Mitford and John Dover. They're two former tribal policemen who have collected a lot of stories.
I'm so happy he brought up John Dover and Stanley Milford. We did an episode with the Paranormal Rangers, and it was one of our highest viewed videos ever after these guys were both on Unsolved Mysteries. So I would highly suggest you guys go back in the archives of Somewhere in the Skies and check out our interview with the Paranormal Rangers. The things they've experienced on the Navajo territory is startling, the amount of stuff they've experienced. Did you happen to watch that one, Suzanne?
I did. That's one of my favorites. And is it John Doyle? What's John's last name?
John Dover and Stanley Milford.
Yeah, John
Jr.
Dover. Right.
Mhm.
I think he's fascinating. And I think
Yeah.
he has really seen some stuff. I know they both have. But that's a good start mark on Indigenous peoples and their perspectives. And even out where we live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, you will see petroglyphs of things that look like flying craft and the typical gray alien being, that shape of the eyes and whatnot. So they've got a healthy relationship to all that.
Absolutely. It always brings me back to when I hiked the mountain there in Arizona with Clifford Mahooty, the Zuni tribe elder. And he beat me up the hill, and then he showed us the
Camelback. Was it Camelback?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, one of them. No, not Superstition. Yeah, one of those. But yeah, he showed us the petroglyphs, and yeah, it was clear as day. Those are
amazing, isn't it?
UFOs. Those are aliens. I
That's
don't see
right.
how they could be interpreted any other way. But yeah,
That's right.
I'm glad this woman asked about Central America and in South America and stuff. She said we have a lot of data you guys could use, and
That's
she's right. She's right. So
Yep, I agree.
cool. All right, I think we're getting to the end here. Exciting. Wow, what a Q&A. This went way better than I anticipated. Screw that dumb documentary we were going to watch.
From Native American people certainly in North America.
I'm sure it's great.
So again, they might have connections and a way of hooking up with Central and Southern American indigenous experiences. Oh, yeah.
Hi, hello. Regarding the binary download received from the military officer at Rendlesham,
Let's go.
was the Ministry of Defense part of its decoding? And if so, do you know what the message was?
Great
No,
question.
the existence of the binary code only emerged in 2010. Jim Penniston stayed in the US Air Force for some years. And although it was okay for him to talk about the UFO because his colonel had seen it and talked about himself, there was no way he was going to talk about the binary code and telepathic downloads and messages and things, because he was concerned that he would lose his security clearance and therefore that he would lose the kind of good postings that he was hoping to get. So he stayed quiet until he was out of the military and didn't really want to talk about it at all. But it then went not to the Ministry of Defense, because the Ministry of Defense had terminated its UFO program at the end of 2009. So it actually went, the person who did the decode was a computer scientist called Nick Sisk. And just from memory, the textual part of the message was exploration of humanity, continuous for planetary advance, eyes of your eyes, origin year 8100, which of course led people to think maybe it's time travelers, not aliens, which is what Jim Penniston believes now. And then a series of latitudinal and longitudinal coordinates that match up with the Great Pyramids, at Giza, and with the Nazca lines, and with Sedona and things. So yeah, the decode came not from the Ministry of Defense, but from a computer engineer.
I was just wanting to go back to the contractor status, the U.S. Air Force and NASA, where I worked. never had the contractors work directly for them. They would give a contract to the contractors and say, here are the parameters. For instance, when the Skunk Works were developing the F-117 Nighthawk, first they had to make the HAV blue. Once they had to have blue and it was authorized, then they were authorized to produce the F-117 Nighthawk. So that certainly goes along with what the other gentleman here was doing, because people within the government know this is how the government works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, when you look at ATIP and ORSAP, for example, there's always the COR, the contracting officer's representative. And that's the individual that has to make sure that the contract deliverables are on time and on target. And then, by the way, there is someone in the front row who's been trying to get in for ages. You right? But yeah, so let's do here first. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hi, Nick. Anyway, my question was the recent video of the egg.
Yes.
That have they, I guess, retrieved other eggs that you know of? And why is that just all of a sudden, it was just dropped? It was over that one weekend they
Speaking of
showed,
things that have gone
and that was
silent.
it.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't have any more information about that. And again, I can only hope that the people in Congress who are tracking this, I mean, obviously they've seen that video. I can only hope that they have already. I mean, if I was on any of these committees and I saw that, my first question would be, right, I want somebody senior from DOD in here. Is this video yours or not? Question number one. Question number two, if it is, what the heck is it? I have not been privy to those discussions.
Do you think the egg video is a hoax, like a fake?
I don't know. I think it's at either end of the spectrum. I think it's a hoax and it went too far and they've gone quiet. What's the name of that group? ProPixel.
Skywatcher.
Skywatcher.
Oh, ProPixel.
Yeah. Or it's the other. It's dead on real and it's too close for comfort and it's been shut down. So
yeah,
I don't know how to choose between the two.
I don't know. Like, we had Megan Medic on the show from News Nation, and I asked her, I'm like, what's going on with Skywatcher? Like, what's that story about the egg? And she said, like, the lengths in which they made Ross Coulthart and their researchers go to get that egg video. They had to, like, go out into the snow and dig it up and, like, all this weird cloak and dagger shit and all that. And and then that's the video we got. And honestly, like, the video was not good. It was very weird, and
It was
clearly
weird. Perspective was weird, wasn't it?
yeah, and kind of a letdown, to say the least. But yeah. Anyways, I'll let Nick Pope get back to it. But yeah, what's going on with Skywatcher? If anyone
We need
knows,
to know. Yeah.
if anyone knows what's going on with Skywatcher, please let us know. They have completely just fallen off the face of the planet. Okay.
But I hope they're going on.
Okay, thank you.
Us too.
Thank you, Nick. You know, back during Roswell, there was Colonel Kosel who talked about some bodies were recovered. One of them was alive. David Grush also talks about that biologics pilots were driving these crafts. And there is lore that the US government has these beings in facilities and has done experimentations on them. And the question is sort of a two-part. Do you think England has a similar type of, has done similar types of experiments and acquired also these ETs? And some of the evidence suggests that their biology is very similar to our biology. And then the question arises, well, are they us from the future? So kind of a two-part question. Do you think in England and at the Ministry of Defense, they've captured some of these beings as well? And are they us from the future?
I would never say never, but hand on heart, I've never been read onto any program that has dealt with that. I sincerely doubt that the UK has any crashed material or biologics. I think although we know Russia and China have a program, I'm not even sure that they have anything. I get the impression this is US led. And so I think the answers are more likely to emerge in the United States. As to the second part of the question, yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you look at the alien greys, they're alien, but they're not that alien, right? So, you could say the ape-human split was about 5 to 7 million years ago. Fast forward, maybe the greys are what we evolve into. I mean, it's close enough to us that would be a kind of idea that you could put out. And again, of course, it ties in with some parts of ancient astronaut theory, which say that we were either seeded here or upgraded, or that there's a hybridization program, and that we'll find that when we do meet NHI, that maybe we share some DNA and some other characteristics with them. Who knows? But yeah, thank you for that.
Hey, Nick. I was just curious, while you were serving under the Ministry of Defense, were you ever aware of the shutdown of nuclear missile arsenals in the US, UK, and Russia?
I was not, we didn't have any incidents in the UK. I mean, obviously, just as part of doing my job, I was aware of Maelstrom, Minot, a couple of other ones. There kind of is a debate about Rendlesham, but I can neither confirm nor deny the presence of nuclear weapons at those facilities. However, the story is that light beams from the UFO struck the weapons storage area and had some sort of effect on the ordnance. But I can't comment on that. The more disturbing case, of course, is the 1982 one from Ukraine, where, and everyone seems to forget about this, this was the case where instead of switching the nukes off, they actually put them into the pre-launch sequence.
Oh,
and
hell
caused,
no.
as you can imagine, an absolute horrendous moment for the watch officers who thought they were going to be presiding over World War III.
Whoa.
So, I'm aware of those sorts of cases. And I know that Robert Salas briefed Arrow, or certainly gave a statement to Arrow. I got the impression from a private interview that Sean Kirkpatrick put out that he was not particularly enthused by the testimony. But of course, there's a whole separate debate about his role anyway.
We have about 5 minutes left. Anyone else that hasn't had a chance yet? Or right here? Okay, 1 second.
Okay. And I think I saw one over here as well. So maybe we'll make these two the last, and I'll try and be super concise.
Hi, Nick. Considering that you have some expertise in defensible airspace and air safety, I'm curious about, let's say, Ryan Graves' current nonprofit effort to create a repository of information where I believe it's commercial and military pilots can report. I'm wondering if you know more about the status of the ability of pilots to report both in the US, possibly in England and other places.
It's still a sensitive subject. There is still stigma, which deters a lot of people from coming forward at all. Most pilots now know that there are mechanisms to make a report. Arguably, I would say sometimes too many different roads that they can go down. But the stigma is still there. It's diminishing, but I know just from my own conversations that there are still, I couldn't put a figure on it, but a sizable percentage of pilots, military and civilian, who see something just don't bother reporting because they're thinking it's too much hassle. I don't want to deal with it. Yeah, they say that reporting is encouraged, but this is only going to lead to extra work and potential issues. Why don't I just keep it to myself? And that's still happening. So there are challenges, but yeah, Ryan's doing some good work. To be fair, the FAA and others, but there's still some work to be done.
Yeah, this is a little off subject, but do you know anything about CERN and the Hadron Collider and how it made us shift timelines?
I mean, I don't. I know that before they even switched on the Large Hadron Collider, they did have to do a risk assessment to make sure that they wouldn't inadvertently create a mini black hole that would destroy the Earth. They concluded that there was no chance of that. But it's interesting that they had to do the risk assessment to start with. And of course, they've ramped up to higher levels. And of course, they're already talking about the next generation Hadron Collider, which may or may not be in Europe or indeed the United States. I've heard those rumors. I can't evaluate that sort of stuff, I'm afraid. You know, there's an old joke in the intelligence analyst community, interesting if true. That's my assessment of that. I think we've got 3 minutes. Does anyone want to sneak in?
I have a quick question. Last couple of months on social media and so on, there's been recently trending a lot of information and reels regarding the recently discovered power plants under the Egyptian pyramids. And I just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was actually on tour with Ancient Aliens Live when that story broke. So I discussed it with William Henry, who's been to the Egypt like about 45, 50 times.
Yeah, that's his wheelhouse.
Tours. Yeah. And Jason Martell similarly. And they were both initially quite skeptical. I think Jason is coming around a little bit more to the idea that there might be something to this, but he's wanting to be cautious about it. I mean, of course, intellectually, we know just that there are still discoveries to be made. There are probably hidden chambers in the Great Pyramid that we've still not discovered. You know, every now and then they send one of those little robots up the shaft. They find a little door. I suspect there's more. And there is stuff down there, but whether it's quite what these researchers are saying, I don't know. It's still too early. We need to look at the raw data. It needs to be validated, but it's certainly very interesting. Now, with the total eclipse coming to Egypt in 2027, and it's interesting, we hear the date 2027 a lot in relation to disclosure or some other momentous event. Interestingly, the path of totality will not hit the Great Pyramid. That's only going to be 95%, which you know, it doesn't even really go that dark. But Luxor will be in the path of totality. And so I expect, here's my prediction, with all these stories about 2027, with all the stories about discoveries still to be made in Egypt, and with the total eclipse coming on, what is it, August 2nd, 2027, I suspect that we're going to see a ramping up of the narrative around that.
Got a chance for one more question? Anyone? Okay.
Why do you think that the United States has sort of become the arbiter of whether the ET phenomenon is true? There's 180 countries in the world. Why isn't another country? I mean, we got a lot of things going on here right now. Why can't another country, you pick it, just come out and say, look, we'll break the news? Why is it up to Trump?
I think only the person in possession of the secret, and particularly in possession of the hardware, can actually break that story. So the answer may be that those other countries don't have a smoking gun to disclose or aren't aware of the secret. I think the other two possibilities, and they're kind of related to that. The first one's the obvious, is that frankly, the US is still, although obviously there are concerns about China, but the US is still the world's preeminent superpower. So as the big dog in the room, it's I guess, like, yeah, maybe it's America's to take. The other argument, the other possible answer is, well, you know, tying into how I started, only the person who actually has the craft, the bodies, whatever it is, can actually be gatekeepers of that secret. And the answer to your question may be because the only crash, despite for whatever reason, the United States is in the driving seat on this. And with that, we've reached our time. So I'd like to thank you all very much for a great.
Let's give Nick a hand. Thank you so much.
I think this was a much better thing to watch today after all that with the other one on this special day.
Everything happens for a reason.
It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. It was great. You know, like, say what you want about Nick Pope. Like, I know he doesn't, people, he was a problematic individual, as anyone is. He is a
Most humans are, right.
complex individual. Yeah. But when you watch him tackle, questions like this, I thought he did such a good job.
Yeah.
And he knows, how things work within these governments. And I thought that was a good array of questions that were asked. Nothing too crazy, especially, trust me, contact in the desert, and you should go, Suzanne.
Yes.
It can get pretty crazy for sure.
I bet it does. Yeah, I bet it does. But you know what I also loved about this today? He clearly enjoyed talking with normal people, with regular people.
For sure.
He took his time, used up every moment he had, tried to get everybody covered as best he could. So I liked seeing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. If anything, he was always a gentleman, and he was a curious guy, and he had a passion for this topic, and we will carry that forward for him for sure. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Special thanks to Contact in the Desert, and we will miss you greatly, Nick, and we appreciate and thank you for all the work that you've done in this field for many years. I'm just gonna get to the end of the slideshow here. We got some new merch. If you guys are
look at that.
at all interested, we have new merch in the merch.
I'm gonna have to have a coffee cup.
We got J.O. and Heineck and Jacques Vallée in one t-shirt, one hoodie, one mug, one hat, however you want it. We've got it. Tote bags. I've got the poster right behind me here for you guys. Head to the merch shop. Link is in the show notes for that. I think it might still be on sale.
Oh, good.
35% off for at least the next 24 hours. So be sure to hit up the merch shop if you're interested in supporting us in that way. And if you haven't already, check out our latest episode of the podcast, Saucers, Spooks, and Kooks, where I interview Adam Gorightly and Christopher Graybill about their documentary called Saucers, Spooks, and Kooks, all about the disinformation within ufology from the past and how it mirrors a lot of what we're seeing and hearing today. Very, very fascinating conversation for sure. For sure.
Well, and what a good group we had today, everybody. There are over 300 of you watching this.
Incredible.
Despite
Across all
the fact
platforms.
that we had no notice on it to you, and we had to change things in the middle of the video.
Yeah, you guys were so patient and kind, and like that you stuck around for something that you didn't even plan on watching.
Yeah.
Thank you. But I think you're right, Suzanne. I think this all happened for a reason, and we really got to show, the strengths and the insights of one of the preeminent UFO researchers out there who will be greatly missed. But you got anything before we let our wonderful crowd go?
I don't. We hope to see everybody Sunday in the normal live stream.
Absolutely.
Till then.
Absolutely.
Hang in.
Hang out. If you guys want to throw your last super chats in, now is your chance as we do the outro. I will be giving away these signed books no matter what. So those who have donated will be entered into that. You can get them in right now if you want. If not, don't worry. We're still going to do the lottery, and I'll let you guys know who wins. But that's going to do it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today for this very impromptu Ask Me Anything with the late Nick Pope. And we will see you guys on Sunday for Somewhere in the Skies Live for the latest UFO news. So remember, as always, keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching somewhere in the skies. Take care.
There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide at all.
Spectre Vision Radio.